If you can do that, if you can show authority and expertise, meaning you're an expert, you've got good advice worth listening to, and you've got empathy, meaning you care about the person, then those two combined, then you've got real trust because this person really wants to help me and they know how.
Hello and welcome to the Smart Chiropractor Show and our featured guest segment. My name is Dr. Jeff Langmaid. I'm here with my co-host, Dr. Jason Deitch, and today we are fortunate to sit down with a doc across the pond. He is a chiropractor, a teacher, an educator, Dr. Chris Chippendale. Thanks for coming on and chatting with us today.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm looking forward to it.
It is our pleasure. One of the areas I know you've placed a lot of focus of your own time is in patient communication, and specifically how this happens in a chiropractic practice. We've been talking a lot about the patient journey on the Smart Chiropractor over the last year or so, but I'd love to kick it off. I'm going to ask you a tough question to get started. What is one of the biggest pitfalls you see chiropractors consistently making when they are communicating with their patients?
Yeah, I think the biggest one for me is kind of captured by whenever I talk about teaching communication to chiropractors, the first thing they want to ask about is the report of findings. They want to go straight to that. So how do I say this? How do I explain that better? How do I get them to get it? And they focus straight on communication, meaning how do I do the talking bit better? And they completely miss the fact that if you don't do a really good job of listening, why would the patient listen to you? You know, they want all the cool metaphors and, you know, I mean, the guys I like to work with, they don't really into scripts, but they want to know how to say it. And it's often a bit of a tough thing to go, to be honest, if you see me do a report of findings, if you haven't found out what's really important about patient, what their values and their goals are, how they're feeling right now, you're going to look at what I do and go, that's not really going to fit. So for me, I think communication, it starts with listening. It's that two-way street. And if we can do a really good job with that, then not only do we know how to explain things in a way that they'll understand and relate to better, but they're going to listen to us because they're going to feel really appreciated and really respected. I think that's what a lot of us, for well-meaning reasons, we tend to skip over and get straight to, here's I'll tell you the answer.
Hey, Doc, do you have an email list of 300, 500 or more? If so, please connect with our team at thesmartchiropractor.com. With Patient Pilot, we can activate that email list and start generating reactivations into your practice each and every week. To schedule a demo and learn more, head over to thesmartchiropractor.com. Again, that is thesmartchiropractor.com. But right now, we'll head back over into this awesome interview on Interviews by the Smart Chiropractor.
I'm curious as to sort of where you believe this communication process or phenomenon sort of should begin. A lot of chiropractors start the process, as you're implying, when the patient comes into the practice with their own expectations, their own agenda, their own desires. What do you think in terms of communication prior to that first visit? Because we all know, you could say the exact same script or the exact same something to 10 different people. You could say it the exact same way and get 10 different results. So a lot of this has to do with who's coming into the practice altogether with what expectations and what openness to your message they have. What are your thoughts there? What do you think chiropractors are doing right, or what do you think they should be improving?
So I think that you're right. There's a lot of work. This is something we've looked at in our practice more the last few years, is in terms of our outward facing material, you know, like what does our website look like? Who's that going to attract? You know, how are patients finding us? And when they find us, what are they going to see? Now, I'll be honest, you know, I don't have the best handle on SEO and that's your guys' domain. I have a very limited understanding of that. But certainly, you know, I see some practitioners go, oh, I want to see more sports focus. But you look at their website and they're just talking about generic back pain. They're not necessarily putting out a site, putting out material that's going to attract their ideal patient. So I think working out who your ideal patient is and speaking to them, that's huge in terms of the marketing. The other aspect is, you know, you have the sort of outward facing stuff that patients know everyone's going to see. And then you've got their first interaction with you, whether that's they're going to click on book online or they're going to give you a call or drop you an email. And this can really, really make or break it. You know, we think if they have the relationship with us, the practitioner in the room, but whoever's going to answer that phone call, that's the real first impression. We had our team a few years ago, they won the British Chiropractic Association's Reception Team of the Year award, which they completely deserve. It's the first time they'd ever had this award. And the example I always give for why I felt they deserved this was we had a patient who called up in pain, wanted to be seen, quite soon, was struggling. And Katie, our CA at the time, she picked up the phone and she just did her job. She sat and she listened to him. She reassured him, got him booked in. He comes in the next day and he goes, "Are you the person I spoke to yesterday?" And she's like, "Yeah, that was me." He goes, "You're the whole reason I'm here." And she was a little kind of taken aback from it. I wasn't quite sure what he meant by that. He went, "I called 7 clinics before I spoke to you. You were the only person who seemed like they actually cared and wanted to help me. And that's the reason I'm here." Now, I know the clinics in our area, and I know a number of DCs that this guy would have called a good, kind, caring DCs. But for some reason, he got the impression with that first contact, they weren't that interested in helping him. They didn't seem to have that connection. So 7 people in our area lost out on this new patient before the chiropractor even knew they existed because of that interaction. And to me, that really kind of epitomizes where we often forget that relationship with the clinic. It starts with whoever picks up that phone call. And if we're missing that, then we're potentially going to miss a number of patients even coming to see us, or they may come in not feeling as trusting, or not feeling as safe, or not feeling as respected necessarily. Not because the CA's tried to do that, but maybe they just haven't known how to do that. So that communication, that listening, that was something we work on a lot with our entire team. And Katie's particularly good at doing that. So I think, it's not just a doctor-patient thing. Your whole team has to be on board with this, because one negative interaction, that can spoil the whole new patient journey for you.
That is a very, very powerful tip. Everybody listening and watching, it is not only about how you interact with patients, but it certainly is about how everybody on your team interacts. Chris, you mentioned where communication and trust meet. And I'm curious, in your experience, what are some of the biggest trust killers that you see happening each and every day in practices that you work with around the world?
I heard this from John Morrison quite recently. He was like, trust is empathy plus authority. And I think a lot of us place emphasis on the authority. We're trying to demonstrate our expertise. We're trying to demonstrate, our special knowledge and our skills. We can still drop the ball with that without realizing sometimes. Often I find chiros will tend to over-explain. And sometimes, because we're worried about seeming like one of those chiropractors, that sort of thing, we'll kind of justify or defend our recommendations. And that can really kill the trust, because it seems like we don't even believe in ourselves. So often it's a case of actually saying less rather than saying more. The empathy side of things, that varies a lot practitioner to practitioner. I think most of us would say we'd like to do that, and we aim to, but it's not something that we're really taught. In my college, we were taught how to communicate a little bit, but how to actually empathize with the patient, I've yet to hear of anyone who's heard that in their chiropractic. If somebody has, let me know, because that would be really, really cool. And we think that empathy means we have to be nice and like everybody and be super friendly and super caring. Empathy just means the ability to understand the patient from their perspective, from their shoes, and then communicate that back. And it's actually, once you know how, it's a lot simpler. One of the tips I always give for this is just, you want to find out what the emotional impact of this problem is. How is this making them feel? Not just it's a sharp pain, but it's worrying me, it's keeping me up at night, it's getting me down, whatever that is. And often when you talk to a patient, you'll get a sense of that. But if you say to them, how does this pain make you feel? Some will open up. Some will be happy you said that. Others are going to pull back and go, what? I thought you were a chiropractor, not a psychologist. What's going on there? The type A driver types won't respond to that. So the best way around that I found is just when you get that sense, you kind of get that gut feeling when you're listening, would just be to say, it seems like you're really fed up with this. It seems like this is really starting to worry you. And the beauty of this is most of the time I'll get it right. And they'll go, yeah, like that's it. And they'll be impressed that, wow, you really understand me. You got it right. Occasionally I'll get it wrong, but they don't go, no, and kind of close off and sit back. They'll go, no, it's not frustrated. It's just more kind of getting me down now. And then I can go, okay, so it's getting you down. Yes, that's it. Great. You cared enough to understand. So the great thing with this is you can't do it wrong. You could get it wrong with every new patient all the time, forever. The worst that's going to happen is they're going to correct you and then care that you bothered to check with them. So I think that empathy side, we misunderstand what empathy means, and then we don't necessarily know how to demonstrate that in some patients. But if you can do that, if you can show authority and expertise, meaning you're an expert, you've got good advice worth listening to, and you've got empathy, meaning you care about the person, you're not a dick, basically, then Those two combined, then you've got real trust because this person really wants to help me and they know how. That's really, so I think it was John Morrison I heard that from. I really like that informed.
Chris, I know you've been doing this for a while now. You've got patient-centered training. I'm going to ask you next round about the Happy Patient Project. But before I do, what I'm really curious to, I guess, see if you can identify is, what do you believe the cause of doctors behaving this way really is? Do you think that, are they not empathetic? Are they just not trained? They are empathetic, but they just don't know to show empathy. And I guess more specifically, what role do you believe that perhaps financial stress on the doctor's behalf has in their ability to be present, to be generous, to be more concerned about the other person's issues than they are about their own issues, and get over themselves to get into this state of service? What do you think the underlying cause of what seems to be somewhat obvious when you say it? You should care about your patients. You should ask them questions. You should listen. Those seem like obvious things.
It's weird, isn't it? Yeah.
but yet it's rare. So what do you think is kind of the cause behind that?
That's a huge topic. There's a number of causes that I can think of. I'm sure there's some I can't. So there's a big rabbit hole we could go down to, but the financial one is definitely part of it. I think as well, a lot of us get into this profession because we wanted to fix people. Like, I'm a second generation chiropractor, and my assumption, seeing my dad as a chiropractor, was like, oh, okay, I'm like a spine mechanic. Like, we'll find the broken part and we'll fix it. And we just got to get really good at working out the spines. And then we find out only when we graduate most of the time that, oh, this spine's got an owner and I've got to deal with the owner. And that's a totally different skill set. Like, being a good mechanic and being a people person, you don't have to have both of those. But being a chiropractor, obviously we do. So I think it's not realizing what we get into. And this is across all healthcare. This isn't specific to chiropractor. If you go into medicine, you have the luxury of becoming a surgeon, and then you don't have to deal with conscious people very often. You can do the mechanic bit a little bit more. But within chiropractic, obviously, we don't do that. So I think there's those kinds of expectations. And also, we then put that expectation on ourselves a lot because we think the patient's coming in, they want to be fixed. They want me to fix them. So I've got to fix them, which means I've got to really analyze, really analytically think about what's going on, the diagnosis, the prognosis, the factors that are affecting it. What rehab am I going to give this person? What education do they need? We're trying to do all these things. And especially when we start out, we've got a basic grounding in all of these. And we're trying to juggle all those balls at the same time, whilst trying to seem like we've really got it together more than we do in front of the patient. That's overwhelming. And we put a lot of pressure on ourselves. And even when we start to get the hang of that and we're more experienced, most of the DCs I work with still feel this pressure to not perform, but to have all the answers. And I found the more experience I've got and the better I've got at communicating and connecting with patients, the happier I am going, I don't know. Like, I won't throw it out quite that blithely, but is saying to patients, actually, I don't know this, but I know what we should do next, or I know who can help you with that. I know what the next step would be. So being able to say that, it actually removes that pressure. And when we don't have that pressure on us to try and have all the answers, we're not stuck in our own head trying to think stuff through, then we have the mental space to actually slow down and listen and connect. So, we're not necessarily taught it because there's too much to teach us at college, and we don't really know to expect it. And then we feel like we have to do all these things. And then, you add financial stress on top of that. That's a whole other stress, a whole other reason. And it is, I think we have this idea that certainly within the evidence-based world, we look at the kind of chiropractors we don't want to be, and we look at the ways of practicing we don't like. And we go, yeah, you could make a load of money doing that, but I don't want to do that. And then we start to think, well, anyone who earns that much money is bad, and anyone who does anything like that is bad. And we kind of run in the opposite direction. And I think sometimes what we end up doing, the image I have, it's like we're running away from a monster and we're kind of sprinting along, but we're looking over our shoulder, terrified that there's that thing over there. And we don't see we're heading for a brick wall or a cliff sometimes. So I think that's definitely part of it. And the financial stress, it's a bit like, it's almost like a sort of Zen kind of try not to try kind of thing. I found the less that I've worried about that, like the more it's come. it's not just that. There's a lot, you guys know more than anyone, there's a lot more, in having a successful practice than that. But if you're always worried about, are they going to commit to care? Are they going to pay up front? Are they going to do all this or that? Your energy naturally conveys that to the patient. Whereas if you can come from a place of genuine curiosity and just wanting to do your absolute best to find out what they need and how you can help them, they'll sense that. They'll be happy to pay to come back and see you. They'll be happy to do that. It'll naturally come over time. But yeah, it's getting past that point can be a bit tricky sometimes. And I know I have the luxury in the UK of paying UK university fees. When I graduated, I paid £3,000 a year. It's now £9,000 a year. And we're going, oh, these poor kids, it's £36,000 of debt. And I know in the States, you guys sitting there laughing, going, that would be lovely. So, there's that student loan pressure I know is a much bigger thing in that respect as well. So I'd love to say there's an easy answer to that, but I would say, the less you can focus on that and the more you can connect with the patient, the less that's going to be an issue over time. And as that gets easier, you'll start to see that snowballs and it just becomes a self-fulfilling thing.
Hey, do you ever wonder where all your patients went? You spend so much time and energy bringing new patients into your practice, but it's almost like putting water into a bucket with no bottom of the bucket. We want to help you change that. We want to put a bottom in your bucket so that when people come into your practice, they stay in your practice. If that makes sense to you, then I want to invite you to check out our Patient Pilot automated email campaigns. Schedule a demo and learn how you can pilot your patients back into your practice and how we can help you do it. Enjoy the rest of the show.
I think I've answered the question. I feel like
that's a powerful tip. Thinking about always needing money will make more of you always needing money, and I think that's a very powerful aspect of it. And you described something I want to just dig a little bit deeper into. And there's this bizarre, in my opinion, continuum of chiropractors: those that pride themselves on having the highest PVA possible, and others that pride themselves on having the lowest PVA possible, which doesn't make any sense to me at all. And also, I'm glad we're talking financials, because we're always happy to talk business and financials. And many chiropractors get a little fearful about that, or that there's almost a dichotomy between patient care and income, which in reality, they're directly correlative. And
come to England, all of us hate talking about money.
But how does patient, my question to you is, with that foundation and understanding and what we all know in the profession, how does patient communication impact revenue and finances? Is this direct in your opinion? Is it indirect? How important is this in a chiropractor's ability to have a successful practice?
It's absolutely key. It's absolutely key. I would hesitate to say whether it's direct or indirect, because there's a number, it's not a single unilateral relationship, but it affects multiple things. I mean, first of all, you can be a great chiropractor with brilliant technical skills. If you can't communicate to the patient what you can do for them, they're not going to come back. So it doesn't matter how good you're going to lose every patient. If they feel like you don't care and you're not interested and you didn't listen, even if you did, if they don't get that sense from you, they're not going to come back. So financially, you're not going to succeed at all. So there's that aspect of it. There's also communicating well. Patients really want to know there's a plan. And I certainly I was guilty of under-treating my patients, because I'll have the lowest PVA possible, but I was towards that side of, I don't want to have a high PVA. That means I'm bad. So my tendency would be to space them out a bit too early, to maybe discharge them early. I was worried about recommending maintenance. And actually working on a patient-centered approach to communication, I've realized, that's not ethical. I think over-treating is a more egregious sin. It's clearly unethical, but I think under-treating is a much more common sin. That's something a lot more of us do. So being able to communicate well without feeling like I'm worried that I'm pitching to the patient or I'm selling to them, that's naturally meant patients stick with the plan more, because they're not seeing me kind of justify, defend myself a little bit as well there. So that's definitely part of it. I think as well, it's not having to have all the answers, like I was saying earlier. Being able to offer patients the choice. I now don't feel like I have to say, this is a plan, this is my best recommendation for you, and I've got to convince you of that. Because if they accept that, great. If they don't, they then are going to completely leave. Whereas if you can connect and communicate on that person-to-person level, have that respect. If they go, yeah, you know what, that's not going to work for me, and I don't try and push them into that mold, again, they're much more likely to stay. They might not have as many visits as I might have recommended. They may not come back for maintenance as often as I might have suggested, but they're still coming back to see me. Or worst case scenario, maybe they decide not to. Maybe, well, I've got them out of pain and they've gone, great, thanks, that's it, I'm done. If I've let them go with love, as I know a lot of the vitalistic ones love to say, but that relationship's intact, I haven't made them feel judged, I haven't made them feel like a bad patient or that I disapprove, then I'm still their chiropractor. I've got people in the area, I haven't seen them for 3-4 years. I know I'm still their chiropractor because anytime they have a problem, they're going to come back and see me. So the kind of lifetime PVA is significantly higher, even if per visit, maybe they're only seeing me a handful of times. It doesn't, we don't have to. I had a patient once who came to see me. She'd seen a chiropractor about 6 months before. Guy in the area, good guy, knows his stuff. Really bad back pain, went to see him, had the treatment, was like, oh, it's great. I felt so much better. It really, really helped me. It's doing really, really well. And then after chatting for a little bit, I said, okay, seemed like an odd question, but why are you coming to see me? Because you saw this person, they helped you out. They know their stuff. You seem very happy with it. Why would you take a chance on seeing somebody different? And she said, well, he said, if I didn't come back every month, it was going to come back. And I wasn't sure, so I didn't. And it's come back. And I was like, okay. Like, is there more? She's like, well, yeah, I'm too embarrassed now. Like, I'm going to go back and he's going to be like, oh, I told you so, and look down over his glasses. And I know this guy. I know he's not going to do that, but that was her fear. That was the way the relationship was left, gave her that impression. So she took a chance on somebody completely new, which is a huge jump because she already trusted and knew this person and she had evidence they could help. So the fact that she came to see me, to me, speaks a huge amount about how easy it is to disrupt that without even necessarily, he didn't mean to judge her to make her feel that way, but just going, okay, if you don't want to, that's fine, but it might come back, so I'd recommend it. That might have been all he said, and that's enough for her to go, oh, I'm not going back, I'm too embarrassed. That sort of embarrassment can be a huge, huge motivator for patients not coming back. And then it's just so much harder to build that reputation over time.
It is very refreshing to hear more and more of us talking about, I guess what I'll refer to as emotional intelligence, being able to sort of understand, the why behind the why, the reasons behind what seem to be obvious but don't work out that way. Chris, I'd love for you to get more into your Happy Patient Project. What is it? What do doctors need to know about it? And also, how are you letting more and more chiropractors know about the program so that they become aware of it as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Happy Patient Project, I launched that last month. Like most people, I thought, oh, I should have an online course one day. I've been teaching this stuff live for a long time. And then COVID hit and I went, yeah, I really should have got that online course off the ground by now. And then, like a lot of people I know, I spent a year beating myself up for not, actualizing all my dreams and using all that time. But we put that together over the last 12 months. And it's been really good fun because, to be honest, I was really not sure about online training for communication. It's like communication is a two-way thing. Can you learn it from a screen? It's much better if we all get together. But having actually done that and had a trial group go through it and more people since, I'm convinced it's the future. It's actually a much more effective way to learn because it's about 15 hours. So it would be 2 long full days. And I don't know about you guys. I know when I go to a seminar, I leave Monday morning, I'm all fired up. A week later, I've forgotten 90% of it. And all those notes I made in my notebook go in a drawer and often don't get looked at again. And it's just not an effective way to learn. So the way I structured this project was to go, you're going to learn a little bit each time. Here's one skill, practice that for a week. Here's the next skill, practice that for a week. So it's broken up. It's the way that we would learn in school. It's much more effective. So it's an online program. It takes patients right the way through the entire patient journey from, step one, them coming in, first impressions, how to really listen and connect with patients like we've been talking to, how to give an ethical and effective report of findings based on that. And then how to just make sure that they, it's still going well through care. So how to do good reviews. We talk about maintenance. I've included the maintain tool, which I'm sure you guys know about now from Andreas Eklund. Just added that in because that's a brand new questionnaire around maintenance care. And also I've put in the social styles model. That's one of the new recent additions. This is a really, really powerful, but really straightforward model for understanding how to adapt your communication. Because we all know different patients come in and communicate differently. And we can sit there and wish they were all like us, but really, if we're going to be patient-centered practitioners, we have to modify our communication to them. So, here's all these skills, but then here's how to adopt a different approach with different patients as and when you need to. So that's the Happy Patient Project. Like I say, I launched that in May. So it's really a combination of everything I've been teaching the last few years in this online package. I built in loads of extra strategies for accountability. There's learning journals, there's handbooks, there's little quizzes, little things to do like that. I did as well, because I know for myself, if I don't have a deadline, I don't do it. I've bought a bunch of online courses that I love that I'll never finish because they have lifetime access. So I didn't want to say you've got it for 3 months and that's it. But equally, I knew without that accountability, people wouldn't. So what we've done is we've built in a 5-month timeline. If you do an hour a week, you'll get through it in 3 months. If you complete it within 5 months, then you get lifetime access. Because I know for me, and certainly all the people in the earlier versions, they really appreciated that. So I think the average completion rate for an online course is like 15%. It's really, really low. That first trial run was over 50%, which we were really happy with. So that's basically the whole program in a nutshell there. What you can do as well for your listeners is if they use the discount code SMARTChiro, or one word, I'm offering £100 off for the first 5 DCs who do that. So if you want to get that discount, you want to jump on that early. I guess you guys will put the link in the show notes, that sort of thing. Yep. Perfect. Unfortunately, it's UK spelling. So yeah, sorry about that.
That is all good. Chris, thank you so much for taking time out of your day, sharing. This is a great conversation that I have a sneaking suspicion we're going to continue in the future with you. Thanks for coming on and sharing. Docs listening and watching, we are going to drop those links down below and in the show notes, so be sure to check out what he's up to. And again, Chris, thanks for coming on so much today, sharing with us and our audience. Really appreciate what you're up to and the impact that you're making through the program.
Lovely. Thanks, guys, and yourselves as well. It's been really great to chat to you.
Thank you so much for watching this video on the Smart Chiropractor. To not miss a single thing that's clinically oriented, marketing oriented, or more, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel today.